ElderGeek.com presents Top 10 Super Nintendo Entertainment System Games. The Blue Bomber returned in blazing 16 bits for his first appearance on the Super Nintendo in Mega Man X. This time he was armed with a cool new suit with more weapons and powers, while pitted against a cast of entirely new and incredibly deadly robots. Creative stages and enemies combined with fluid platforming and a classic Capcom learning curve all make Mega Man X a shoo-in for our top 10 SNES games. Even though it was an enhanced remake of the first Castlevania game, it's not like that's a bad thing. Simon Belmont could now whip in 8 directions, maneuver while mid-air, and moonwalk. Newly remixed music and extra stages to show off the Mode 7 graphics make this hunt for Dracula one of the most memorable in the incredibly long series of Castlevania games. Argued by thousands to be the best beat-em-up ever made, no game to date has ever been able to simulate the experience of sitting down with 3 buddies and fighting Shredder's minions all across time as the world's most fearsome fighting team. What happens when you take established Nintendo characters, throw in some awesome new ones, and then give it to Squaresoft to develop? Super Mario RPG is what happens. While not as deep or as lengthy as many other SNES role-playing games, it was a blast to play, and it laid the groundwork for future Mario role-playing games. Does this break the 1 per franchise rule? It doesn't matter because when we first popped this into our Super Nintendos, we got exactly what we wanted, and more. Hundreds of levels, new power-ups, and the debut of Mario's dinosaur companion, Yoshi. There are a lot of great things about Secret of Mana, but the one thing that stands out the most is the fact that the battle system played like an action game, but had the character progression of an RPG. And on top of that, you could now play multiplayer. In a game that practically defines perfection, Samus cemented herself in our hearts and in the history of video games with this unparalleled Super Metroid. It still stands as the best game in the Metroid series with its amazing soundtrack, massive game world, and flawless gameplay. With a story arc that transcends time, Chrono Trigger is considered one of the greatest RPGs of all time, so it naturally makes our list. Combine the deep plot with excellent writing, astounding music, and some new tweaks to the active time battle system, and you have our number 3 in our top 10 SNES games. Returning to the classic viewpoint of the original game, A Link to the Past blew us out of the water. The game was huge, the enemies varied, the puzzles devious, and the plot well written. It created the idea of the Dark World, and fathered the formula for almost all Zelda titles to follow. Final Fantasy III, Final Fantasy VI, whatever you call it, no game is more worthy of our number 1 spot. With a storyline of unprecedented depth, a massive roster of interesting characters, monster sprites drawn by the incredible Yoshitaka Amano, and arguably Nobuo Uematsu's best soundtrack, we can't count the number of ways we've played through this one. With characters like Terra, Locke, and Celis, and the greatest villain in the history of gaming, you can't go wrong. To this day, the Dream Oath opera is still performed live. While many consider the game to be the greatest RPG ever created, that honor is still up for discussion. We at Elder Geek can think of no other game more worthy of our title of Best Super Nintendo Game Ever Made.